Imagine it's 1944. A monster arrives on British shores. Not a soldier, but a machine of war that struck fear into the hearts of Allied tankers across Europe. The German Panther tank, fresh from the battlefields of Normandy. A captured Panther, a model, was brought to the School of Tank Technology for one purpose: to be taken apart, piece by piece, and have its secrets laid bare. This wasn't just a routine inspection. This was an autopsy of a predator. The British engineers were like detectives at a crime scene. They knew the Panther's reputation. It was fast. Its armor was sloped to deflect shells, and its 75mm gun could punch through Allied armor like paper from incredible distances. On the Eastern Front, it was a nightmare for Soviet T-34SA in Normandy. It outranged and outgunned the Shermans and Cromwells. The Allies had to know, was this tank truly the invincible beast it seemed to be? Or were there weaknesses they could exploit? The mission was clear. Understand the Panther's strengths, find its flaws, and use that knowledge to win the war. The first thing that struck the British team was the sheer quality of the German engineering. The optics were a masterpiece. The gunner sight, the famous Zeiss TZF-12A, was crystal clear and offered incredible magnification. British reports praised it as being far superior to anything they had in their own tanks. This meant a Panther crew could spot, identify, and engage a target long before an Allied crew even knew they were in danger. It was a huge advantage, allowing the Panther to dictate the terms of an engagement. Then there was the gun itself, the KWK-42L70. This long-barreled 75mm cannon was a killer, firing high-velocity, armor-piercing rounds. It could reliably penetrate the frontal armor of a Sherman tank from over a mile away. In contrast, a Sherman's standard 75mm gun struggled to penetrate the Panther's frontal armor, even at point-blank range. This firepower disparity was a major reason for the Panther's battlefield dominance. The British testers fired the gun, measured its velocity, and confirmed their worst fears. The reports were stark. This was one of the most lethal tank guns of the war. The armor was another area of intense study. The Panther's frontal plate was 80mm thick, but its genius lay in the steep angle, 55 degrees from the vertical. This sloped armor effectively increased its thickness to around 140mm, making it almost immune to Allied anti-tank guns of the era. The British team fired their own 17-pounder gun at it, one of the few Allied weapons that could pose a threat. They found that while the 17-pounder could penetrate the Panther's turret front, the main hull was an incredibly tough nut to crack. The message was simple: don't engage a Panther from the front if you can help it. But as the engineers dug deeper, the Panther's perfect facade began to crack. They discovered a shocking secret in the steel itself. The German war machine was running out of critical alloys like As a result, the steel used in later Panther models was brittle. While the armor plate was thick, it had a tendency to shatter or spall when hit, even by a non-penetrating round. This meant that a powerful impact could send deadly shards of metal flying around inside the crew compartment, a terrifying prospect for the men inside. The real bombshell, however, was the final drive system. This complex set of gears transferred power from the engine to the tracks, and on the Panther, it was a disaster. Designed for a lighter tank, it was completely overwhelmed by the Panther's 45-ton weight. The British team found evidence of extreme wear and tear, even on this relatively new vehicle. German maintenance manuals were captured, and they revealed a horrifying truth. The final drives were expected to fail after as little as 150 kilometers. Think about that. That's like buying a brand new car and being told the transmission will probably break before your first oil change. This mechanical unreliability was the Panther's Achilles heel. It was a mechanically fragile beast. While it was formidable when it was working, getting it to the battlefield and keeping it running was a logistical nightmare for the Germans. Many Panthers were lost not to enemy fire, but to mechanical breakdowns. They were often abandoned by their crews when they simply ground to a halt. This discovery was a game-changer for Allied strategy. It meant that denying the Germans fuel, spare parts, and recovery vehicles was just as effective as trying to fight the Panthers head-on. The engine, a powerful Maybach V1 to gasoline engine, was also a source of trouble. While it gave the Panther excellent speed on good roads, it was prone to overheating and catching fire. It was also incredibly thirsty, consuming vast amounts of fuel. Another resource. The Third Reich was desperately short of. The British testers noted the complexity of the engine and the extensive maintenance it required. It was a thoroughbred racehorse engine in a workhorse's body, and it demanded constant, expert attention. So, what was the final verdict from the British engineers? The Panther was a tank of stark contrasts. On one hand, it was a brilliant design with a superb gun, excellent optics, and formidable frontal armor. In a one-on-one duel, it was arguably the best medium tank of World War II. But on the other hand, it was a logistical nightmare. It was over-engineered, mechanically unreliable, difficult to produce, and a nightmare to maintain. The British report essentially concluded that the Panther was a perfect example of Germany's flawed war philosophy, prioritizing quality over quantity and tactical perfection over strategic reality. They built a tank that could win a duel, but not a war. The Allies, with their thousands of simpler, more reliable, and easily repaired Sherman tanks, ultimately overwhelmed the German panzer divisions. The Sherman might lose the one-on-one fight, but there were always 5 more Shermans ready to join the battle. The story of the British testing the Panther isn't just a technical breakdown. It's a lesson in warfare. It shows that the best weapon isn't always the one with the biggest gun or the thickest armor. Reliability, ease of maintenance, and the ability to produce in vast numbers are just as important, if not more so. The Panther was a magnificent beast, a technological marvel, but it was also a flawed giant, and its weaknesses helped pave the way for the Allied victory. Thanks for watching. If you found this deep dive into tank history interesting, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the archives of war. Let us know in the comments what other legendary machines you'd like us to dissect. See you in the next one.